Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, Dan and Hoges recap the Twins' 3-game series against the New York Mets. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. I am Dan Thompson. With me again this time is Andrew Hogenson, who is more present on this podcast than me or David lately. We've been traveling a little bit. I'm still not back in Spokane. I'm doing some other things. But Hoges, I wanted to ask you a couple things. First off, are you a Ted Lasso guy?
I was, I guess. I really liked the first season a lot, and then halfway through the second season, I kind of just got a little burnt out, I guess. I think the first season hit at just the perfect time because it was COVID and everyone just needed a real good pick-me up. So I loved it then. Second season, I got a little sick of it, but I'm still not going to talk any trash about it. It was a good show.
All right, so once off air, David and I had a long conversation about Ted Lasso that I'm not going to go into here. It's a soccer-related show, right? We know how David feels about soccer, but I bring it up because I'm at an education conference today, and if anybody's been to conferences at all with breakouts and things like that, I imagine the dynamics are similar. And so I'm in one, and so Ted Lasso came out, I believe the third season was maybe just last year, not far. And so it's a very Ted Lasso themed presentation, and she says things like, hey, I'm gonna show a couple clips, right? Because that's what you do. You show clips of shows to illustrate other points about other things, right?
Yep.
And so she shows a scene, and my wife and I think my wife has watched all of Ted Lasso, but I'm kind of catching up. I'm in the middle of season 3, right? She chooses to show a clip from the last episode of season 3, and I'm like, you've just ruined the whole show for me, woman who I just met at a conference. And the thing of it is, if this was MASH, right, fine. Frasier, Seinfeld, whatever. This has not been long enough, Hoges. What is this person doing?
Yeah, this might be karma, though, because you told David he was in the clear for telling that Boston Red Sox fan that they lost the night before. And you said he was totally in the right. So I think she heard that and was like, well, of course I can tell him about it, even if he hasn't watched it. So the question is, though, are you still going to watch it now that you know how it wraps up?
Well, yes, in the way that I watched Apollo 13 to the end, knowing that they get back safely. But it's just but I'm not supposed to know the end of Ted Lasso. Anyway, I was a little frustrated. So
I once had a buddy who told me I ruined Narcos by telling him that Pablo Escobar died, and that was in the 90s, early 90s, I think, maybe even late 80s. So apparently there is no statute of limitations.
Oh my gosh, it drove me nuts. Anyway, I was bitter about the rest of that presentation. I'm gonna get over it though. Anyway, speaking of things to be bitter about, we have lots of that here. We've got Twins management things. We've got the Twins losing 2 out of 3 to the Mets. We should point out Bally Sports North and Comcast did strike a deal, so they're going to end the 3-month absence on that platform. I haven't had to deal with that because I'm out west. It's one of the good things. What are your thoughts on this deal, Hoges?
Far too little, far too late, and it's costing extra money to get. So I don't know. It just seems like a slap in the face. I wish they hadn't even got a deal. It doesn't really help situations. Most people who are trying to figure things out have already moved on to different platforms or are just not tuning in anymore. And it's gross. You'd think you'd want your product to be available to as many people as you can, even when they're willing to pay. And yeah, this is too little, too late.
Well, we will get to more of that, I'm sure. Trade deadline things that did not happen for the Twins. But let's go ahead and jump in first to the series recap.
Series recap.
Game 1, Hoges, a forgettable baseball game to say the least. A 15-2 loss for the Twins here.
Yeah, do we even have to talk about this game? I used to think that coming on this podcast was a lot of fun, but then last time David just reams into me by using my own words against me the entire podcast, and now this one we have to talk about this garbage.
It was a pretty brutal loss. The Twins' worst loss of the season. Their most runs allowed in a game as well. I think we were actually together at the last one when they lost 13-12 to the the Astros. That was a much more exciting game.
Yes,
this one not
was.
great. The Twins actually do take a lead early. Margot doubles, and then Buxton hits an RBI single. But that was basically it for the Twins. And after keeping the Mets quiet for 3 innings, SWR doesn't make it out of the 4th. He allows 6 earned runs. Are you concerned about him after this start?
No, I mean, everyone's going to have a little bit of a stinker of a start. It sounded like it was a lot of like poorly hit balls. But frankly, it was a good time to switch over to the Olympics when that started happening.
That's true. To run through a few more things here for this game, Cole Sands was fine. I guess that's good. 1 2/3 innings, 0 earned runs. The Twins actually had chances in the top of the 6th when they were only down 6-1, but they can't get another hit with runners in scoring position. And then the Mets make it 11-1 in the bottom of the 6th, then 15-1 in the bottom of the 7th. We saw the last of Josh Staumont here, and actually Brock Stewart also was sent back to the injured list. So no more Stewart, no more Staumont. Matt Wallner does hold his own, I suppose, in relief pitching, so I guess that's good. Gets 4 outs, allows 2 hits. He was the best reliever the Twins threw out there.
Right, and he was throwing like 45-mile-an-hour sliders is what they were calling them. But yeah, what a weird game. I mean, they gave up 15 runs, and they were by 3 guys. Woods Richardson gave up 6 earned runs, Staumont 5 earned runs, and Stewart 4 earned runs. You don't normally see that in a game like this.
There was, I guess, a good sign was that Ryan Jeffers hit his 15th home run in the top of the 9th.
But
he
it wasn't.
nearly
Wait,
homered
hold on.
earlier.
It wasn't a good sign. I just traded him off of my fantasy baseball team on Sunday, and then he decides to break out of this slump.
He was a lot better, hopefully. And hopefully, again, this carries through. Jose Quintana was good for the Mets, goes 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. The Mets, if you can call it the difference, this was the difference. They go 8 for 17 with runners in scoring position, and the Twins go 1 for 5. Salt in the wound, perhaps, is that Pete Alonso, who is, if I have Aaron Judge, then David has Pete Alonso, goes 2 for 5, 3 runs, and 2 RBI, including that home run.
It's funny, too, because he was linked to the Twins, I mean, not really very seriously, but as a decent pickup that they could get at the trade deadline, and then the Mets just have completely turned it around, and now he is just dominating us in this game.
Yeah, SWR gets the loss in this. He's 3-2 on the season. He's made 18 starts, Hoges. That's almost impossible to only have 5 decisions. I suppose because Rocco likes to pull him out mid-5th inning.
But hey, he has a lot more wins in the min for the win rule book.
He does, that's for sure. Game 2, the Twins lose this one very differently, and at least half of it's different, right? The Mets don't score as much, but the Twins only score 0 runs, 2-0. Miranda comes back to the lineup, which was good to see, but the offense really does nothing. We're going to talk a lot more. I have some complaints, shall I say, about Sean Manaea, who was great for the Mets. David Festa was fine. 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, still takes the loss. Twins do have a decent chance in the 8th, and it's still obviously a close game. Kepler pinch hits for Martin and reaches on an Alonso error. Vasquez flies out, then Lee walks. You got runners at first and second. Larnach comes in for Margot. He flies out to center, and then Edwin Diaz comes in. Buxton had a great at-bat against him, but he does strike out chasing on a full count for a key strikeout. That was one of 13 strikeouts for the Twins, Hoges.
I want to go back to like what you said about Festa. I thought he looked really good. It was good to see him shut down a lineup that had done so well, and just like the dichotomy between these 2 games. There were a combined 27 or 26 hits in game 1, and then we go to game 2 where there's a combined 7 hits. So it was nice to see him get this lineup kind of in its place. The offense just didn't show up at all.
Yeah, just 2 hits. Santana and Lee have the only ones. And why would they get hits against Manaea? I will bring up more about him a little bit later. But we have good things to talk about here in Game 3. The Twins win this one 8-3.
Yeah, this one was huge. Buxton jumping on them right away in the top of the 2nd with a huge home run to the to center field, 435 feet. It was fun to just see that, get this game rolling, get the offense picking up again because they needed it from Game 2.
Well, and the Mets were right there. Bottom of the 1st, Trevor Larnach stole a home run from Francisco Lindor as he kind of just almost fell back into the wall. It was a great play, but it wasn't one of those where Trevor Larnach set his feet, leapt, and grabbed it. It was kind of all in one motion.
There was a lot of that in this game too. Like Wallner had one later on that probably should have been a home run and weirdly ended up being a double. Like the ball was flying today, and there were a lot of very close plays on the outfield wall here.
The Mets actually do take a brief lead in the bottom of the 2nd. Mark Vientos hits a home run to opposite field. It's 2-1 Mets. But the top of the 3rd, the Twins are able to answer. The first 5 Twins come to the plate, get a hit. It's capped by another Wallner home run. Just a bomb. Does this man know how to hit home runs that are like 375 feet? Everything he hits is just crushed.
It's amazing right now too. I mean, David and I talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but he really is kind of making the Twins realize that this guy is going to be up here for good. I mean, he had a great year last year, rough start this year, but I think we're getting to a point now where I think he's going to be that everyday dude and less worried about being sent down again. It's nice to see that, because that first bounce back, I think, is the biggest with these young guys, because they're going to get sent down. That's pretty typical. I mean, Jackson Holliday got sent down for a while, and we saw what he did when he came up today again. So to see Wallner really have this stretch where he's hitting well, playing good defense, I'm super excited about that.
But I do have one name for you to keep in mind here.
Oh, Canada.
Didn't we see Eddie Julian do this last year?
Yeah, it's true. I can't figure him out. I think he just needs a voice in his head that just says swing. Like, I think the hitting coach just says, you go up, swing at the first 3 pitches. I don't care where they are. You just have to swing.
Wax on, wax off.
I don't know if that's the proper use of that sounder, but a mentor telling him what to do, I think would be helpful. Kind of a strange play in the top of the 4th of this game here. So it actually turned out to be a double play. Kepler strikes out, and then he kind of leans over the plate, and it just so happens that the Twins are trying to steal second, and so the Mets catcher winds back to throw and just clocks Kepler in the back of the helmet here, which was funny because it was in that rally that the Twins stole a couple bases, and at one point, the Mets catcher Alvarez tried to throw out, I think it was Larnach trying to steal second, and he threw between first base and second base. So this guy doesn't have a great hold on the ball, but I have never seen a play like that. It was a weird double play.
I was surprised that they called him out too for interference. His swing took him across the center of the plate, and at first you're like, there's no way. And then I was watching the Mets broadcast actually when this was happening, and they kept saying that he's out. I mean, he's for sure out. He fell, and I didn't know that was the rule, that if his swing clearly took him, it wasn't like he was trying to get in the way.
I think Kepler was just it was a dance step that he was doing across the plate here. Kepler's very crafty. He even ran hard in this game, scoring from first on a double. This guy knows how to turn it on when he needs to.
So they did take him out of the game an inning later, and I actually thought that they had pinch hit Margot because I was at work, so I was just looking at the updates on my phone or whatever.
Because of course he would, because that's
no
what
way
Rocco
they
would
did
do.
that again.
We could use a pinch.
But it sounds like Kepler is okay. He passed all of his preliminary concussion tests, and I'm sure it was just kind of precautionary. But yeah, what a weird injury. I got drilled in the back of the head by the catcher and a runner called out because of it too. We talk about this all the time. What a beautiful game.
Yes.
Every day you see something new.
Absolutely. And even players are seeing things that are new to them. Just a couple more plays to talk through here. So on the top of the 5th, Wallner doubles. It was reviewed, and they turned out it was not a home run, just a deep double. But then Santana doubles him in. So it's 7-2. Jeffers has an RBI ground out in the top of the 8th. One of those moments where the Twins had runners at the corners, and you just have to get a run, and they do. So it's 8-2 then. And then we see Randy Dobnak. You can't get rid of this guy.
No.
I'm not dead.
Hadn't pitched with the major league team in almost 3 years, but there he is, Hoges. Pitches a shutout inning, a hit and a walk, but he gets a strikeout. Are you happy to see Randy Dobnak back for more than nostalgia?
Yeah, I think it was your text. You said he's our trade deadline pickup right here. So I guess I don't know. No, I'm not. I guess. I love the guy. I love the Uber story, but can't we do a little better? No.
You would think so. Bottom of the 9th, actually, Johan Duran hadn't pitched in this whole trip. So he pitches because he hasn't in a while. Gives up a run. Doesn't matter, though. He actually looked pretty good. The Twins do win this one 8-3. One other note, the Twins have been hit by a pitch 75 times this year. Buxton was hit the most in the league. Cleveland is next with 67. Those are some Dan Hayes tweets. Just a weird stat. And we will talk a little bit more about Willie Castro a little bit later as well. And we would be remiss to not mention Pablo Lopez's line. He goes 6 innings. Another great start. 3 hits, 3 walks, 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. His ERA is down to 4.65. His 10th win, but he looks much more like an ace lately.
Yeah, ever since right before the All-Star break, and then starting with that Milwaukee series, he's looked really, really good, and against some really good teams. I think I said it in the last episode, but I'm even more confident now. I think he's back, and that's good to see in the stretch here because they need it, and they didn't get any more help.
All right, well, let's move on here to our segments. Puckett's Picks Winner.
Touch 'em all, Kirby Puckett.
Puckett's Picks Winner.
I hate when David wins this thing when he's not here. He wins this with Buxton. He had 5. I picked Santana, who had 5, but the first tiebreak is home runs, and Buxton had 1, and Santana did not. Hoges, you took Miranda, who had -3. He only played in Game 2, and he struck out 3 times. And the listeners took Royce Lewis, who did look better by the time Game 3 came around, but he had -1. Hoges, what's going on?
I'm glad that Miranda played in the second game of the series. It was nice to see him there. I'm a little concerned that he didn't play today. today. I don't know if you heard anything, if that was related to any of the getting hit in the face. I didn't think it was. I think it was just a day off maybe. But Lewis, the guy who never slumps, appears to be slumping now too. It's concerning. We need our big boys to step up now. And hopefully we're getting Correa back here pretty soon.
Yeah, no updates yet on Correa, but hopefully we'll get one here as the Twins come back home. Standings here for Puckett's Picks. David still leads with 18. Hoges, you have 11.5. The listeners have 7, and I have 6.5. I'm just kind of hanging on in the back there. And I think with that, we can move forward into our next segment.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
Yeah, this one was tough for me because like a lot of guys, it was really, really, really difficult when I was looking at the box score. But I went with Buxton. He had a pretty decent game 1. He had the homer in game 3. I don't like that David picked him in Puckett's Picks, and that's why I'm picking him as my beast. But I guess in honor, someone's got to do that. Game 2, he had 4 strikeouts, but let's be honest, game 1 and game 2 didn't really count. So we can just move on.
Yeah, so many strikeouts there in that second game for not just him. I went with Matt Wallner, who was actually our Puckett's Picks winner. He would have been a home run, a near home run. He pitched a clean inning when nobody else seemed willing to do that. But I do, I echo a lot of the things that you said. I am happy to see this powerful swing connecting much more now. He leads the team in OPS right now. I don't think he's qualified to do that necessarily, but man, what a swing. Now, before you get to your bench, I'm going to do mine because you're going to take yours in a direction that I'm not sure we're going to be able to veer away from here. But I'm going to put Willie Castro on my bench, and this is an honorary title here for him. He was 0 for 7, but Willie Castro got a day off. Now, Willie Castro is kind of like, he's the guy who always works, right? He thinks he's going to have a day off. He's on vacation with his family, and he still has to make a few phone calls. Like, that's Willie Castro here. But he finally got a day off. 106 games played this year, but not this one. The first time he sat all year.
We need to start a tally of how many metaphors that Dan has had now for Willie Castro. Like, he's somewhere. He's blowing up birthday candles. He's with Rocco. He's on the beach. He's all over the place. And now I guess he's on the bench.
Boulders are like onions.
I do love my Willie Castro comparisons, but yes, it felt like I had to put him on the bench this time.
Do you think it's unique though in like today's game that he wasn't disappointed that he was on the bench? Like, I mean, in the past you have like the Cal Ripken streak, and like that was huge. Guys wanted to be considered the Iron Man, and now that's just not a thing anymore. I wonder if there are some players out there, but yeah, when they interviewed Castro, he's like, no, I needed it. It was good for me to kind of get a day off here.
I think it's that NBA mentality too. You know, NBA guys are so used to planning out these days off, months in advance sometimes. I think it is kind of par for the course. It's probably good, and especially it's good when you can do it and the team still wins.
It is a little bit of a result of watering down the regular season because you can't afford to rest guys with so many teams making the playoffs. In the NBA, for sure, you got teams that are under 500 that are making it a lot of times. It's not necessarily a bad thing because, like we said, the playoffs are that much more exciting, but this is probably a direct consequence of that.
Now, Hoges, you are known for taking kind of this beast and bench segment in different directions, but I think it's hard to argue with who you've got on your bench.
Let's just say I am very happy that we didn't record yesterday because when the trade deadline came and went and our only trade was for some guy whose name I don't know, Trevor something, who plays for the Blue Jays, who has an ERA of 5 that we traded our lowest minor leaguer for.
Hold on. He's got some really good advanced stats against lefties in certain situations here, Hoges.
I like it.
Please attempt to be a gentleman.
I will attempt. Yesterday, I would not have attempted. I put the Pohlad family on my bench. And the stat that I would like to bring to everyone's mind as they talk about how much money they are losing on the Twins, they're worth $3.8 billion. And that estimate was in 2015. They're the 10th richest owners in baseball. That's all I got.
The 10th richest? And the payroll is not nearly the 10th. You would think that those could very easily correlate.
Yeah, you really, really would. Especially, we've said it a million times, but apparently they aren't listening. You have a team that finally won a postseason series, that finally made the playoffs and made some noise and won a game, won a series, looked decent against Houston, could have kept going. You got some star power. You're building on it. And then they crap all over that in the offseason. And that direct decision is what led to what happened here at the deadline. So you can complain all you want that like those rental guys like Kikuchi from Toronto going for way too much and Houston overpaid for him. That doesn't matter. You could have fixed this in the offseason. You could have signed someone then. They knew that this was a hole. If you don't want to give up prospects, you can't blame the front office on that now because they were handcuffed by management earlier. And then if you're talking about getting a guy that isn't just a rental, you have to pay him in the next couple of years. So even though the front office says that they didn't find any guys like that, it's because they weren't looking, because that wasn't an option, because they weren't going to pay him next year. So I'm sick of it. I'm totally sick of it.
Well, we're going to let you bring this up again here in another segment. So you can take a little breather. We're going to look at Rocco now.
Rocco's Rewind.
I should probably play another one here because this is what I'm going to do.
There he is, beating that dead horse.
But game two. Okay, game two. Sean Manaea is on the mound for the Mets. Sean Manaea is a lefty, and so, of course, Hoges, you expect to see the righties and the switch hitters in there, right? But Rocco doesn't look at the splits for players at all, because if he did, he would see. And he doesn't have to look just this year. He can look at the long history that Sean Manaea has against Rocco managing the Twins. Now, I looked this up, and I think I maybe stole 1 year early, but since 2018, Sean Manaea has pitched 28 2/3 innings against the Twins and has allowed just 2 earned runs. And I would wager that in every one of those that Rocco had the opportunity, he loaded that lineup with all the righties he's got, right? And he put his Max Keplers and his Matt Wallners, and probably if he had him, he would have put, Jason Kubel on the bench here in these situations as well. Because it's like, Rocco, you have a better chance to just put Kepler in this lineup. And I went back and I looked at some other teams, and other teams generally are leaving their lefties in, at least a few of them, to face Fanai. So the only logic that I can see to defend what Rocco is saying is that he's going to look at his own guys' splits, and he's going to say, well, my guys who are righties hit lefties better than my lefties hit lefties, and so I'm going to go with my guys. And I get that, but don't you have to look at this too, Hoges?
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. Like this year, left-handed hitters have an 810 OPS against Manaea, and right-handed hitters have a 605 OPS against Manaea.
That is just unconscionable that you wouldn't lean into that.
He has 375 plate appearances against right-handed batters and 95 plate appearances against left-handed. So there is a smaller, and the guys appear to be doing the Rocco way against him. But 100 plate appearances is a lot. And like you said, this isn't just this year. This is over the course of his career that he has had those reverse splits. It's sad that it takes you and me 37 seconds to look it up on Baseball Reference or wherever you look to see what their splits are. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
And the problem is that it was a 2-0 baseball game. And so you can pretty easily point to this and say, I think maybe Max Kepler or Matt Wallner or Trevor Larnach could have gotten a hit here in this spot. It's just baffling. But I need to also, as we get to yours, I think I need to also play that sounder again.
There he is, beating that dead horse.
Well, I almost had a panic attack today when I saw Margot was coming in for Kepler. I am glad that he didn't pinch hit with Manny Margot, but thank goodness he didn't. That's really all I have to say. Because in a 15-2 game, what are you going to do as a manager? In a 2-0 game, what is you going to do as a manager? And then game 3, he had no other choices but to put in all of his best bullpen guys. I agree with yours. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to be talking about here. But hey, we made it one series that Manny Margot did not pinch hit. We're getting somewhere. We got to give credit where credit is due.
Well, thank goodness. All right, let's move on. Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
I guess this is still technically to be chronologically if I go first. I thought game 1, the bottom of the 6th and the bottom of the 7th, and this is when Staumont and Stewart gave up all those runs, highlighted a couple things here. First of all, this highlights the bullpen depth issues that we hoped were going to be alleviated with the return of Stewart and with the improved play from Staumont, though apparently, Staumont was pulling the wool over everybody's eyes with that 0 ERA for a long time and allowing all those inherited runs to score. But the other thing that I think this highlighted is the tenuousness of the 4th and 5th starter spots. Not because I don't think SWR and David Festa could be good starters, but because they're really kind of 5-inning guys. And
Absolutely.
So you've got 2 spots now back to back in your rotation where you're going to need that bullpen depth, and they just don't got it. And I just worry that without addressing it beyond Trevor Richards being added as a relief guy, that they haven't done enough here, Hoges.
Honestly, I think that's a fantastic point because the lack of bullpen depth is absolutely impacted by the lack of starter depth. And with their 4 and 5 guys only pitching 4 or 5 innings, and we don't know what's going to happen when Paddock comes back, there's a lot of baseball left to be played, and there's a lot of innings left to be pitched. This is a scary situation.
And again, you only need the 3 starters, maybe 4 in the playoffs. I get that. And we could, throw a Dobnak SWR piggyback in there or something like that. But, bottom line, you got to get there first. They're not really, like you've pointed this out, they're not miles ahead in the wild card. I mean, they're tied with the Royals right now for the second one, and they're 2 games up on Boston. That's not safe.
No, especially when Boston and Kansas City did something at the break. They all got better. They really did. Every team around them, including the Guardians too, they all got better. So these teams aren't going to go away. That is for certain now.
Well, and that's your moment, right? Is the deadline that came and passed.
I think that what summed up the whole series, because even hearing reports from the clubhouse that they were all down, my Minnesota moment is the Twins front office doing nothing. And I'm not counting that one trade as something. It was absolutely nothing. And we can, like I said before, I think it is on the ownership for what they said at the beginning, or for what they did at the beginning of the year with slashing payroll. But this is also on the front office too, because eventually you got to take a stand and just be like, I hate the dancing around the issue with them. And I get that it's their boss, but at the same time, tell how it is. Like if they really gave you an ultimatum that you can't add salary, then just say that, because that is the truth. And it just seems like they're just kind of going around and not trying to offend the Pohlads by how they're phrasing this. We're like, well, we could have got a guy. Whenever they've had financial situations, they backed us on it. Nah, they haven't. They slashed the payroll by $27 million.
Do you think that this, and I saw this on X and other places, that we are in danger as fans of seeing, Falvey, Levine, Rocco leave for a team that is more willing to make these moves?
Absolutely. I mean, Rocco came out last week, I think it was, after the series and said, like, this is it. These are great ball players. We need to support them. The time is now. And I think you can absolutely interpret that as a call to the owners and to the front office to get guys onto that team. Look at what Correa did.
I want to build a championship culture.
Exactly. That's what he's trying to do. And apparently he's the only one. And it's just, it's nothing we haven't seen before. Like, I understand that, but it just felt like this should be different after what happened at the end of last year. And David and I talked about it so much. We had capital. Like, we had guys that we can trade. We have too many young players that are ready to go. Get something. Do something.
Well, let's go on here to Maurer's musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
I want to pick up on that and look at a particular player here, because this is who they've got right now, barring something else or maybe somebody internally. How much of the Twins' success now rests on the left arm of Caleb Thielbar? Are they going all in on the fact that he can be a guy to get some lefties out late in the game?
They are. I mean, they did pick up Trevor Richards, I think is his actual name. And he does have one of the nastiest changeups in baseball. So he is supposed to be good against left-handed pitching. But they're relying a lot on Caleb Thielbar right now because someone needs to take that spot. And it doesn't seem like Trevor Richards is that guy that's going to be the one before Alcala, Jax, and Duran. And none of them, I mean, they've been really good this year, but Duran has not been what he's been, was last year. So this bullpen's going to have me sweating at the end of the year. There's no doubt about it.
I think Rocco's just going to have to be very carefully managing to win 2 out of every 3 games, and he's going to have to throw one away. This is the Mets series, at least they made that easy. What about you? What's your question?
Well, I am going to continue beating this dead horse. And the thing that has made me the angriest, I think, out of the last little bit, and trust me, there's a long list that you've all already heard, but when do Twins fans finally give up on these owners? We complain about the Pohlads since I can remember, since I was 1 year old. But the new low this year was blaming some of their financial issues on the fans not coming out this year. And I don't understand how you can possibly do that. You lie. You do lie. Like there's no other way to say it, about how they were going to make their games available to everyone and try to get, and they, like, Provis, when he came on, said that they promised him that there would be no more blackouts and that they would, then they blacked out half of their viewing audience. And that's not even counting the Dakotas and Iowa that are already blacked out from all these teams anyways, and they have no other way to purchase them. So they go completely 180 on that. And then they say the fans aren't coming out to watch them, so we're losing money. Why do you think they're not coming out? It's not because of the product on the field, because the product on the field's pretty good. And I gotta just say, I'm getting sick of it. Like, you can never blame the players, that product on the field, but it's just one thing after another. And this year just seems like they think we're stupid and they're just going to keep shoving it in our face.
I think that there probably is, and we're not part of this segment because I think we are diehard fans. We're going to go to their baseball games no matter what.
Yes.
But there is this segment that would claim spite as a reason to not go to more Twins games and not to care. Now, if the Twins are able to kind of win some playoff series and give the push, I'm sure people would be there, but I think they'd still be there out of spite against the Pohlads. I think they've poisoned poisoned the well so badly here. It's going to be very hard for them to build this back unless they go out and make one of those big signings. But I don't even necessarily want them to go sign, a pitcher for, I've talked about this before. Signing pitchers to these long, lucrative deals is not necessarily what I want. I wanted a deal here. I wanted Nathan Eovaldi. I wanted somebody now that you knew what you were going to get. I think that's a surer bet. And the fact that they didn't come through and spend the money now, ironically, right when they, make it right with their TV deal, kind of, though they're increasing the price next year. So it's actually going to cost Twins fans more. So that is it's just bad business. It's tone deaf, and it takes Minnesota Twins fans and just wrings this tortured fan base of even more excitement that they have for a team that they should be excited about.
Yeah, they had so much goodwill at the end of that playoff run last year. And I mean, again, boo-hoo, welcome to the professional sports in North America where the fans are angry at the owners. But it's just been something that we've been dealing with for a long time, and being blamed for it when you're the 10th richest owners in baseball is just ridiculous. Because, I mean, we live in Minnesota. The attendance is going to be down in April and May every single year. True. It just is, because it's not nice outside. Look at what's happened even with the weather getting nicer now. The Phillies series, the Brewers series, there were tons of fans out there. And then like this deadline happens and you just kind of feel like you get slapped in the face again. Well, we can't do that because we didn't have enough fans at the beginning of the year. It's like, well, cool. And you're right. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep loving on them. We're hooked. We got that. They got us hook, line, and sinker. But the average fan and even the older fans who have heard this so much, there are people who are done with them because of this. And that makes me sad.
Well, let's go back to looking just at this series and the grades.
To be sadder.
Series grades.
Dare I say I'm going to be quick with this here. Advanced Retreat, 6 out of 10. I say that, and then I have to give the numbers.
Yeah,
you can just give a letter.
You can't just say the grade.
I have a system. I have to stick to it, Hoges. I'm a teacher, for goodness sake.
David would jump on you for that quote so much. I have a system. I have to stick to it. I'll let it be. I'll let it be. But David, I heard it, but I'm not going to say anything.
Well-played baseball is weird in a series like this where you give up 15 runs in one game and then 2 and then 3. I really think they pitched pretty well, and the bats came around by the end, and we got recency bias. I'm just calling it a 7 out of 10. It's a 13 out of 20. That's a D, Hoges. I assume that's going to be about what you've got.
Yeah, I gave him a D. I mean, today was nice. It left me with a better taste in my mouth, and game 1 is one of those games where it's just over so fast. I think that maybe made it a little better. I think I probably could have given them a C, but I was a little bitter about the organization as a whole, so I piled on a little bit here. If you can tell, I'm a little bit crabby about how things have gone lately.
It is hard to separate the team from the ownership right now, especially at the end of July and early August. Well, let's look around briefly here at the rest of the league.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
There were a lot of trades. Every team, the Twins were the last one, but every team was involved in a trade, which I think is actually pretty remarkable, given I think it says a lot of things about kind of how many teams think that they're in it. Anyway, lots to be said about that, but there's so many places, so you should look at MLB.com. Lots of other places have breakdowns of all of the deals. I wanted to look at something that was a little bit more feel-good here.
We need that. We need
yeah,
that.
Exactly.
I need that right now.
So Jackson Holliday, who #1 overall pick, I believe, at the Baltimore Orioles, had a terrible start, was sent down, but he came back. He's looked a whole lot better. And his first home run he hit today, which I think was a grand slam as well.
Yep.
And the ball was caught by a 5-year-old. And we've talked about how much we would ask for this, and if we were to catch a momentous home run ball, and all the kid wanted was a bat from Jackson Holliday and a picture with his dad. This is baseball here, Hoges. This is quintessential.
I know, and it was funny because if you see the video, it's very, very cute. Like we've always said, you got to get a little more, you got to get a little bit more. But the dad kind of put me in my place a little bit, because when he met Jackson Holliday, keep in mind, this is the #1 prospect in baseball. Like his chances of being an all-star are incredibly high. Also, David, he's on my fantasy baseball team. And I mean, he's performing at this level already. It looks like he's getting over that little blip. The dad goes, if my son ever makes it to the major leagues, I'd want the fan to give his ball back too. And I was like, ugh. I was like that. It kind of just, you got me right in the feels. And it was just so cool. And then the kid asked the question, like, I just have one question for you. How'd the Gatorade shower feel? And like Holliday was like, it was cold. It was a very cute moment. I'm glad you brought that up. I needed that after this podcast. I already got the bitterness out. We're looking better. We're turning the corner. I like it.
It makes me think of the Polar Express, right? Where all the kid wants is a bell from Santa's sleigh, right? So let's hope he hangs onto that bat and it fits in his pocket on his way out and he doesn't lose it. Like that foolish child in Polar Express, for goodness sake. Show your pocket,
right? That bat's going to be in his possession for a long, long time. Although my boys keep getting balls at games. My one son has 2 already, and I just find them flying around the house all over the place. I didn't catch one until I was like 12 years old at a Saints game, and I'm pretty sure as a 12-year-old I slept with that thing for about 10 years.
My son got one at the Spokane Indians minor league baseball team, and he was out there playing in the yard, and he lost a baseball, and I thought, oh, why does he care so much? And he comes in sheepishly later and said, well, Dad, that was the one I got at the game. And I was like, buddy, so we went out, we found it, it's okay. But I'm like, dude, put that ball. He's got a baseball that's signed by a bunch of Twins players because he did that little batting practice buddy a while ago. That is high on a shelf, right? Where even he cannot reach it at this age.
I got a batting practice home run from Alex Rodriguez, who I actually did not like. And I mean,
that's ironic.
Kind of, right? And so I have that one still, but it's a little bit bitter having that one. Although with the Timberwolves, he's done pretty good. Although we'll see if he still continues to be the owner. Speaking of owners, let's get into wise.
We have to move
wise.
forward here, Hoges. We've already been down that road. Let's go into, I got to play it quick, the Puckett's picks for next series, the White Sox series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's picks.
All right, so the listeners are going to go with Lewis, which I think is the correct pick. I think he's going to turn it around. He doesn't slump, so it's gonna happen. Plus, they're playing the quadruple A team, so I think that's the right pick right there.
And then you're next, Hoges.
Yeah, I kind of regretted this pick right after I took it, but I went with Buxton. He looked pretty good in Game 3 here and in Game 1 in this last series. He's been hot. He crushed that ball. But you know who really, really, really hits well against the White Sox, especially when he just got called back up from AAA? Matt Wallner, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's who I picked, so I'm feeling really good about that. So I'm going to take Matt Wallner. I thought you were trying to steal my pick or something like that.
No, I should have. I could have stolen your pick. Right when you picked him, I was like, I've screwed up. I screwed up. But you know what? Maybe that's what I need. I need to pick the guy that I didn't think I should have picked, if that makes no sense at all. And maybe that's how I'll win.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brain.
There's so much utility in that. David picked last. He is actually going to go with Jose Miranda.
Future Hall of Famer.
I am not throwing away my shot.
Never let him forget that. So the Twins have a day off. They are 59-48. They're still trailing the Guardians, but there's a series against the Guardians coming up in August, Hogue. So this team still has a chance here to catch these Guardians. There's a lot of baseball left.
Well, absolutely. Going through that road trip and coming out 500 against the Tigers and the Mets, I will take that. Like that's what they need to do. They had another winning July. They've had a winning record every single month of the season so far. That's how you make the playoffs. So I think this team is still in a good position to succeed.
Well, Hogues, we get one more series together. I appreciate you being here through all of this, through the thick and the thin, through the ups and the downs of the trade deadline. I think I'm going to go ahead and send us out. Folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win, and you can find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kuvas and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.